Good evening. It is a nice summer's evening tonight. There's a storm off not too far away from here. And I think the moon's pretty full tonight. And so it just seemed like the perfect night to sit around the campfire and talk about monsters. So we'll sit around our lantern in the back of the screen used Jeepers Creepers truck, and we're going to talk about monsters. And in particular, our favorite monster, the creeper. And today's video, we're going to talk about how the creeper got his truck. And so before we figure out how he got his truck, let's figure out a little bit about the creeper, at least the things we need to know about him to better help us guess how he got his truck. Every 23 years, for 23 days, it gets to eat. There is a lot to unpack in that statement. Most people take it at face value and they don't look very far, but we can find out a lot about the creeper if we just look at that sentence. So let's dig into that sentence and find out a little bit more about our creeper. For 23 days, he gets to eat. It doesn't say after those 23 days that he lies dormant. Now, we are led to believe that and understand because of the husk that comes around the creeper's face in Jeepers Creepers 2. I don't think the creeper does lie dormant for 23 years. And here's why. He's created carved daggers. He's created a carved spear. He's created the harpoon that comes out from under this truck. He's created all the booby traps in this truck. Remember that he carved his self-portrait into the table underneath the church. And he's also put up all the bodies underneath the church in the first movie, in the basement of the church. If he is only out for 23 days, and for 23 days he gets to eat, it seems to me that he wouldn't have time to do all that other stuff. It is also said that for 23 days, when he's feeding, he's in a hurry. He's hurrying to feed. And so when would he have time to carve dagger handles? So that begs the question, what is he doing during that 23 years? Is he out and among us? Well, let's look at the statement again.
Every 23rd year, for 23 days, it gets to eat.
That statement right there means the creeper plays by a set of rules. He doesn't get to do whatever he wants. He is living by a timeline. He is under the authority of something else. There is something that controls the creeper. Have you ever thought of that? If not, why does he have to stop at the end of his 23rd day? So the creeper lives by a set of rules. And that sounds to me like that could be more like a prison kind of environment. Maybe it is that he is underground for 23 years. The other evidence we have of that is the church. You have hundreds of bodies all lining the interior, the roof of that church, underneath the church. And how long would it take to do all of that? I mean, even if you can fly and take them up there, you still have to organize them and arrange them. And he's very careful about it. He sews everybody up. He sews hands together with high school rings. Everything he does is very deliberate. So we don't know for sure, but I'm going to make a guess that the creeper is not dormant for 23 years, but that he is not out among us. I think that he is confined by the rules of his circumstances, whatever those may be, to an area. Perhaps it is under a church, underground, but I think that he has time to do all of his artwork. Wouldn't that make sense why he's an artist? Why is he making portraits of himself? Why is he carving intricate designs into his dagger handles? I think the creeper has time on his hands when it's not his 23 days of feeding. So now we have a lot of information about the creeper in this theory that I'm working on that we didn't have before. And that might point to a clearer picture of how he got the truck. Now, in order to understand how the creeper got his truck, we also have to find out as much as we can about the truck. Originally, most of the trucks that you see like this would have just been a cab, and they would have had a flatbed on the back, or maybe a oil tanker or gasoline tanker or something like that that would make them useful for work. There were not, or there were very few vans like this truck. And so it has long been thought that maybe the creeper made his truck. Now, he could have made a lot of the parts on the truck, but as far as making the truck, I don't think so. It's a 1941 Chevrolet cabover. That's well documented, and so he had to start with at least that. I don't think he made the box either. The box is so beautifully crafted. Now, the creeper would have the talent to make the box, I think, but I don't think he would have the desire. He wouldn't have the desire to put the belt line that runs along the outside of the truck. He probably wouldn't have the desire to make the arched roof and the arch that runs along the bottom of the box. I mean, why would he do that? It would be a little bit more archaic, I think, if the creeper created his truck. And it looks like, to me, that this truck was probably factory made. So I'm going to guess that this truck, in the folklore of the creeper, was built by a body manufacturer that would have taken the truck from General Motors in 1941 and built the box on the back for the purpose of maybe an ambulance or something like that. I'm going to suggest that that's what happened, and so the creeper would have had to have picked this truck up from some place that was using a box truck. Now, how would the creeper have got the truck? That part, I think, is really easy to answer. Surely he wouldn't hand over money. He doesn't operate in terms of money. He takes what he wants. He takes the most valuable, precious thing we have, which is life. So it would only make sense that he would get the truck. Perhaps he would have a victim that was driving this old ambulance or box delivery truck, whatever it was, and thought that it looked perfect for all the things that he needed. After all, it is just what the creeper needs, isn't it? It's small, it's fairly maneuverable, but yet it's still a big truck. It has room for all of the stuff back here, including his body. So it's a perfect vehicle, really, for what he needs to do, especially during his 23 days of feeding. Another part of the puzzle that we need to look at, and we haven't discussed, is timeline. So the creeper is, by the rules he's bound to, relegated to a timeline. And if you work your way back, he would have been active in 2001. Prior to that, he would have been active in 1978. And then before that, 1955. And then before that, it would have been, 1932. So those are the 23-day periods that he would have been allowed to eat. When he's out, I would think that's the only time he would have to collect a vehicle like this. The question is, did he get his truck in 2001, 1978, 1955? He could not have gotten it in 1932 because it's a 1941 truck. Based on the way the truck looks, I think he picked his truck up in 1955. That would be the timeline that would make the most sense to me. Now, why do I say that? Because if I believe the creeper is imprisoned underground somewhere, then it would make sense that he would have his truck with him, because he has to work on the truck. It doesn't just get booby traps by itself. It doesn't just get outfitted for collecting bodies itself. He has to prepare it. And so if the truck were underground for 23 years, that would make sense that it would look the way that it does, with rust running down the sides, you can imagine the creeper might be underground somewhere where there's literally water dripping from the ceiling maybe. And if it were 1955, that would be 45 years basically that the truck would sit underground, and I think that would make the most sense in the truck looking the way that it does. This truck would have been really old, slow, tedious originally, and if he picked it up in 1955, that's what he would have gotten. And so I believe what happened is the creeper found this truck. I think he found it in 1955. I think it was a slow vehicle, and I think he probably killed the owner of the vehicle and thought it looked perfect and took it with him to use for his days of feeding. After all, it was perfect. Has room for all of his weapons in the back and bodies. It's the perfect vehicle. But it wasn't fast enough for him. It wouldn't originally have been fast enough to catch the Impala. And so I think he took this truck underground, and he probably found another vehicle that was fast, and he combined the two. He probably built some things on this truck. All the booby traps, probably the rear bumper, maybe, certainly the harpoon shooter, and most likely the bumper on the front. Now, some of that is utilitarian because he does use this truck, but it's also creepy. And we know that the creeper can detect fear in people. And so what better way than to have this old, dilapidated, beat-up truck that just looks creepy the first time you see it. People are afraid of it before it does anything. And so I think he's accomplished his goal. And so to summarize all of this, I think that the creeper is busy during his 23 years that he is restrained from being among us. I think that he found this truck in 1955. To me, that makes the most sense based on how this truck looks. I think he took it underground with him because that is the most logical place he would exist for 23 years at a time. I think this truck sat in a damp environment and became rusty. I think that he also had to make improvements on this truck to make it faster, and he probably did that with a donor vehicle that he also stole. I think that probably this truck goes out with him on his 23 days of feeding, and I think that when he and this truck are underground, I think he has all of that time to create all his special weapons and effects and booby traps that he needs to be really effective to collect his food during his 23-day feeding cycles. And what's more, he's not just collecting food, is he? He's collecting things. Because if you notice, he doesn't dispose of the bodies. He keeps them, and he makes these beautiful tapestries on his ceilings with them. And so he's not only eating, but he's collecting for those 23 days. Hey you guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that it makes sense to you. All of this stuff is just things that I'm guessing, but I think there's some foundation for each guess that I've made, and I think that it makes a good proposal as to how the creeper operates and how the creeper got this truck. If you guys have any content that you want to see, let us know. Maybe we will do a segment just for you. We are going to have a Patreon section of this channel eventually. I think it needs to get a little bigger first. And I hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, we'll see you.